education for children seems to be always an international and historical issue. Well, under different cultural backgrounds, will the parents educate the children in the same way or not? After today's show, I think you can find out the answer. Well, first, let's introduce our three guests. Serge, Hugh, and Kelly. Welcome to our show. Well, Serge, can you do self-introduction first?
My name is Serge. I'm French. My dedication is psychology teacher, and so I've been teaching here in UIC for 3 years now.
Welcome, Serge and Hugh.
Hi, my name is Hugh. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm currently an international exchange student here at UIC, and I'm happy to share my experiences with you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Hugh and Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm a student from Beijing Normal University, and I'm Chinese. And it's my pleasure to know more about the education in different countries.
Very welcome, Serge, Hugh, and Kelly. Well, hope you enjoying today's conversation. And now let's start our first topic. It is about in what way the parents will educate the children. So, Serge, can you share the experience with us first?
About my own education, I'm much older than you are. At this time, education was quite different from what it is now. My parents were, both of them, very strict, but especially we would fear very much our father. Our father could be very, very tough. And breaking the rules was something which would not be accepted at all in our family.
I see. So how did they punish you, like physical punishment?
It would happen sometimes. Mainly my father he had very strong temper. He could raise his voice and very, very strong, very hard. And so we would freeze, we would be very frightened.
So Hugh, how about you? I heard that you have a little sister in your home. Will your parents treat you guys differently?
Well, my parents wouldn't use physical violence very often to reprimand us for what we did. They would raise their voice. And for myself personally, they would try to use my moral conscience to basically make me feel guilty about what I did. As a little boy, I might get in a fight, as little boys do. And they might say, well, would you not want someone to hit you? Put yourself in their shoes. So in that way, they tried to teach me morality that way. It is a little bit different for my sister because she's a little girl, and girls are treated much differently in the family. For example, I would break curfew, which was 11, and I'd come home at 12. And my parents would yell at me, and they would reprimand me a lot. But I laid the groundwork for my sister, so she would break curfew, and she could push her curfew later just by saying, "Oh, Mom, I'm sorry, Mom, I won't do it again, Mom." And my mother and father would be very lenient towards her. They'd be like, "Well, just don't do it again." Where myself, I would be reprimanded a lot.
Yeah, I know. I have the same experience about my sister. My sister was not being punished as strong as we were, my older brother and I. My brother was sometimes being more strongly punished than me, and I could take advantage of this kind of situation. So playing tricks to my older brother, and I knew that he was going to be punished if there was some fight. But my sister could avoid punishment much easier. My father would not raise this much the voice towards my sister and would not punish her physically. So my sister was very strong at answering to my parents, which I admired very, very much because I could not do that. Okay, I was unable to return words to my father when he got angry to me.
I think it is the same in Chinese families. So how about you, Kelly?
Everyone did something wrong, and so do I. So I can remember clearly about my childhood, but one thing I can remember is that in an examination, I got a low score, and the score is not so good. But teacher, he told me we should take the paper to home and sign it with my mother's name. So I don't do this. My mother just don't know what happened. I signed the paper by myself.
Oh, so have they ever found out?
Oh yes.
So what did they do? What did they do to you then?
My teacher found some problem in my signature, so she told my mother, and my mother found that. So my mother was certainly so angry, and she chased me and beat me with the feather duster, and it's terrible.
How did you feel at that moment?
Surely very, very bad, but my mother tell me we should study hard in the future by myself, and she was happy because I was shocked by the low score. So in the future, I never did that again.
That's good. At least you learn something from it, right? Well, from what we've talked about, it seems that Chinese parents tend to use a more strict way when educating the children. Let's say physical punishment, they tend to use that. Well, it's hard to say it's good or bad, but at least the children can learn something from it. Here, I got a short video from Russell Peters' show. Let's see an interesting way that children being beaten by the parents. Let's enjoy it during the break time.
They'll beat you, right? Immigrant parents will beat their kids. Canadian parents are a little too soft on their kids. And that's fine, whatever makes you happy. But you need to start beating your kids. I'll tell you why. Because growing up, kids now are growing up in a multicultural society. You're going to have white kids growing up with black kids and brown kids and Asian kids, and they're all going to be hanging out in the playground. You know what I mean? And they're going to be talking about the ass whooping they got last night. Do you want that little white kid to feel left out? Beat that child so he's not a social outcast. We'll be sitting around, man, my dad beat my ass. My dad beat my ass too. The white kid be like, I got sent to my room. Well, I'd be like, you've got a room? You need to beat the kids, man. Indian parents will beat their kids. Chinese parents, I would hate to get beaten. Parents know kung fu and stuff, man. I would hate to mess up in a Chinese house, man. Hey, cut this bong. Come here. It says you got a F in school. They wouldn't even need to beat you. They'd go, no, Sonny Chan. Indian parents will beat Indian parents aren't afraid to kill their kids if they have to, My dad's theory was, if I get rid of one, I'll just make another one. And I will tell the new one what an idiot the last one was. Jamaican parents will beat their kids for no reason sometimes, won't they? Hey, boy, come here. Yes, Daddy? What's that for? Just in case.
Wow, that's a really interesting show. Well, it's just for fun, okay? So let's move to the next topic. It's about sex education. So now I want to hear Serge's opinion first. When you were young, did you get sex education at home from your parents?
At this time, sex education is something very popular, and talking about sex is something which is just like free. It's something which is possible and available, and it was not this much at my time. So I think in my family, talking about sex was very taboo. Okay, I can remember when I was 16 or 17 years old, my father coming to my room, and he wanted to say something to me, and at this time I didn't knew what, and he was blushing, and finally he could not express what he wanted to express, but I think he wanted to tell me something about sexual education. So I didn't get sexual education, just like talking with friends.
Well, I see. So I think the young generation must have some new experience and different experience on sex education. So here's some booklets on sex education in American high school, I think. So Hugh must be very familiar with this kind of stuff, right?
Yes, in the high schools, we're given much of this information. We also have classes which teach us about safe sex, contraceptives such as birth control and condom use, and things of that nature. And it's all done within the high school setting. And you're taught it at a very young age. You start off when you're in 7th grade, and then you continue your education about sex throughout high school.
Okay, so what's your parents' attitude? Do they teach you at home?
My parents didn't really talk very much about sex education just because they knew that it was taught in the actual schools.
I think the school plays a really important role on sex education. So how about you, Kelly?
Wow, it's a secret topic in Chinese, and I never heard anything about sex from my parents. And in my school, there's a kind of class we call physiology. In this class, we can learn something about the human body and difference between boys and girls, but it's just surface stuff. So we can't learn something about sex in the school, and of course, nothing we can learn from my parents.
It's just only a biology course in a high school you can learn from. Okay, so I'm curious that Serge, then did you teach your kids at home about sex education then?
I did not exactly give sexual education to my children in the sense that I didn't initiate words about talking about sex, but they would know, especially the boy, because I have 2 girls and 1 boy, that they could openly talk if they wanted to about the matter, and that I would answer the questions. Okay, so it was not like in my time taboo. Okay, to talk about sex, but it was not something which was being raised, especially by us in our family. It was just an open field if they wanted to know something which was in some ways related. But I think, as I used to say, that our kids, they know much more than we do.
Yeah. Children got their own ways to learn,
Yeah,
and
sure.
they should find their own way to be grow up. So I think Chinese parents at this time should give more time and more space for the children to grow up by themselves. In this topic, it reminds me of the housework thing. So Hugh, I want to ask you, do you usually do housework at home?
Yes, my parents put a lot of responsibility on myself and my sister. Specifically myself, my father taught me how to fix engines of cars and of lawnmowers. He also taught me how to paint, how to fix the house, things of that effect. So I was always his right-hand man whenever he was doing something. So he would teach me how to do these things. And they would put a lot of responsibility also with my schoolwork as well.
How about you, Kelly?
Oh, my mother used a Western way to teach me. When I was young, I can do many housework, and sometimes I can cook. Because of my study, I do less in the daily life. So most of the time, my mother cook and my mother do all the housework.
Well, especially for the children who were born after 1980s, because the one-child policy, there's only 1 kid in the family, and the one thing the children need to do is focusing on the study. That's all, and the parents will take after all the things of the rest. So, Serge, do you got something to say about this issue?
Chinese way is more, let's say, more traditional and more guiding and saying what to do to the kids. And in, let's say, in Western countries, there is more freedom for kids. The kids, they are supposed to learn how to manage their own life, how to be independent, how to make their own choices. So we focus more on giving the sense of responsibility to the child.
Here, Serge point out a very important issue, which is we should give more space for children, I think.
Something like this.
Yeah. So there's a question here. I hope three of you can answer this question. And here, let's see. What did parents do when their kids falling down to the ground? Who will go first? Kelly?
Oh, in my case, my mother just lift me up and check if I seriously hurt. And for me, I just cry and cry, do nothing.
So how about you, Hugh?
Unless I was seriously hurt, my parents told me to pick myself up, and shake it off, and not to say deal with it, but to stand up and be tougher.
Did you cry, or they will say something to make you feel better?
They didn't really say too much to make me feel better, but I cried a lot, yes.
As a child, yeah.
Yes, as a
Uh-huh. So, as you have a sister, so your parents will treat you guys differently at this situation.
Yes, because little girls are more fragile than little boys are. If my sister were to hurt herself, they would be more endearing towards her. Oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Where my parents might just be like, all right, well, you're okay. Come on, get up, to me at least.
So I think Serge will agree with you here, right?
Well, something like this. My parents would say if I would fall down, we would say just stand up, okay, get up, and
Get
this
up.
is it, okay.
You're mad.
Unless I was really hurt, but even though my parents would say, oh, okay, get up, okay, you are big enough.
So there's also an animation here. Later we'll show to you. Also describes this topic. So during the break time, we'll enjoy this show. Well, I think the flash concludes what we've talked just now. So let's just move to the last topic, how much money the parents will spend on their children. I heard that Hugh, you bought a car when you were 16. So how did you get that?
Well, my parents gave me a lot of fiscal responsibility. They said, in the United States, it's a very big deal. When you're 16, you have your license and you can drive by yourself. So they said, if you'd like a car, you must save up your money. They basically said, we're not going to purchase a car for you, but you can purchase one yourself. So before that, I worked as hard as I could to save up as much money as I could. And as long as I kept my grades up, I could take my car out. I would purchase the gasoline and all of those effects, but it was all based on me. I had to provide that.
What kind of job did you do at that time?
Well, when I was very young, I couldn't work in the regular workforce because of labor laws, but I would mow lawns both at my own house and around the neighborhood. One individual was moving, so she paid me quite a lot of money to help her pack all of her items, fix up her house, paint her house, and just get it ready for a new person to come in and purchase her house. So that's where I got the majority of my money, at least during that time.
Cool. Kelly, so when did you get your first job?
My parents have a high expectation on me. I'm a special case in China maybe because when I was 16 years old, I'm a high school student, and I like computer programming and design.
Yeah.
So I got a job at the advertise company and do some designing job. So I earned some little money in this job and in that summer holiday, and I was happy in that time.
Lucky you, and you got such a good parents on education this for you. Well, Serge, I know that France is a very welfare state, and you don't need to pay school fees until you get into the college. So in this case, do you still work at a time?
Well, if I talk about my time, it's quite different about this time now. my kids, they would earn some money, but mostly we would provide their studies. However, they could earn little money, but more like pocket money. But for my case, I start working very young, so I got into a drama school, and then I start acting and being paid as an actor. Went to the university, and I've been always working at the same time. I was studying in the university, so I paid my studies because it was just like both things at the same time.
Well, I think that Chinese parents would prefer that their children go to work after they graduating from the universities. They just put so much effort and love on the children, and they will pay their school fees from primary school until the universities. And also, I think the grandparents were also taking care of the children. So I want to ask you that, do your grandparents taking care of you?
No, primarily I stayed at home throughout the majority of my life. We would see my grandparents, but it wouldn't be as often, I guess, as the Chinese family would. We saw them on holidays and vacations and birthdays.
Yeah.
Every now and then we would go over to their house on occasional weekends to see how they were, but they live their own lives. They have their own work. Both of my grandparents, my grandfathers worked, and my grandmother volunteered at a hospital, so that's where she spent the majority of her time.
Yeah, I think there is something very different between Western education and Chinese education, because in China, parents and children, they are very much family oriented. Okay, the links between parents and children, they remain very strong. This is something I do regret about education in Western countries, if I want to put a balance between both. In our countries, children, they have a lot of space for them to express their desire to choose their own career, to make their own choice in life. I think in China, it's maybe more, times are changing, but more directed by the parents' education. And I think sometimes in Western country, there is too much space for the children. And sometimes in China, maybe not enough, okay?
Well, I think both sides can learn from each other then. Such saying can be the very good conclusion for our show today. Thank you for Serge, Hugh, and Kelly. Thank you very much. I think up until now, we all learned something from this show, and we know that how parents will educate the children. And I hope the audience and the parents can really learn something from it. And here's the end of our show today. If you got any ideas on how to educate your children, and if you have some interesting family stories to share with us, just contact us, and see you next time.